post-match press conference after a game against Columbus. We have head coach Pascal Jansen. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. We'll go with Jonathan, followed by Matt.
Yeah, Pascal, Jonathan, Matt here in New York.
Hi, Jonathan.
Congratulations on the win. Could you kind of talk about the work that went into your second clean sheet of the season in the league tonight, and how your team specifically limited Columbus to just 3 shots on target?
Yeah. What can I say? We closed the second block of games earlier this week in the review. As you know, we always separate the parts throughout the season in order to have a clear idea of what happened and what we need to focus on in the next period. And this was the first one for the third block. So you can see on both sides of the ball, I think some good quality at times. Also rewarding yourself for the moments that you accelerate and going into the attack, because that was one of the issues. In between 18 yards, between the boxes, it was pretty decent most of the time. But finishing the moments was something that we were a little concerned about throughout the second block. And then on the defensive side, it was also concerning because our box defending wasn't at a level within the MLS that suits us or is something that is normal for this team. So job well done on both ends, because the clean sheet is a result of that. But mainly it's for us a fresh start going into the third block of this season within the MLS. But we do have to remain very humble because our achievements in the second block were way below our standards.
Matt?
Hey Coach, Matt Manning, New York Soccer Journal, excuse me. Congrats on the win. Obviously, Hannes Wolf today, 3 shots, 3 goals, very clinical. Could you speak on his performance and kind of his game plan? I think he was playing more central at times today. Thank you.
Yeah, well, as you know, we're always trying to be as fluid as possible, and players will end up in positions and areas where we think they can be either dangerous or helpful to make other players become even more dangerous. And Hannes has his part also, and one of those things is trying to find moments in the central part of the pitch, combined with either set-up play or runs in behind. And if you see, especially the third goal is an interesting one, because he's the one who sets it up with Nico Cavallo as the third man run, and he has the final touch at the end of the 18, because he follows up and enters. His intention is to enter the 18-yard box and has a clean finish. And as I mentioned to your colleague just now, the clinical finishing is something that we needed to be more aware of going into this sequence of games in the third block. And I'm very happy that he was able to get 3 shots on target and made 3 goals.
Christian?
Pascal, Christian Arnold, New York Post, good to see you again.
Hi, Chris.
I'm curious, obviously, you kind of broke the stretch of not getting a couple wins there with the win against Red Bull, the US Open Cup, then the loss after that. Now you guys got the win and kind of end the streak in MLS. But how do you prevent that from reversing? How do you keep the momentum going now? You have a couple games on the road, you have another game against Red Bull down the line.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep it from reverting back the other way?
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge for the third block of games. As I mentioned just now, for us this game was the fresh start going into the third block with the games ahead, against a good opponent also, who has just got back on their feet because they had a troubled start in the beginning of the season. But how do we prevent ourselves going back in time, like things happened during the second block? That is something that we've discussed, obviously, and we are convinced that it's, for 90%, it's a mentality issue, because I've used the word casual at some point as well. And you see the games that we played in the second block, there were quite a few good games, but there was also like 1 or 2 that were way below our standard. And I think the game against Charlotte and against Cincinnati stand out in the things that I just mentioned, because if you score 4 goals against Cincinnati the way we did, that can never be a draw. And that's a mentality thing. If you have Charlotte here in New York and they have 0 shots on target, but we're not clinical in finishing our own moments, and then 1 shot on target might be enough. And that is something that we're very well aware of going into this third block of games. And the mentality that we showed today on better, and that helps going forward.
If I could just follow, where do you think that mentality issue had come from? Why do you think it had gotten to that point?
I think that comes down to details. As I mentioned just now, being casual at times and maybe relying on the quality of your colleague instead of dealing with the issue immediately. It's interesting because you can look at it both ways. Of course, when you don't do your job for the full 100% off the ball, you might become more vulnerable in conceding. But if you look at today's moment with Trapo, with Agu, he can score the 4th goal as well. And he's onside. I think I spoke to him just now and he thought he was offside. I said, well, don't worry about that. Just put it in the back of the net and then we'll see afterwards. And that is the flip side of it. Because you need to have no mercy. You don't want to feel sorry for anybody. You have to make sure that you get your moments yourself and just use them to the full 100%.
Thank you.
Right next to you, Shane.
Hi Pascal,
Hi, Shane.
Shane O'Brien in New York. Congrats on the win.
Thank you.
It felt very different to last week against DC. You know, a little bit less possession, a lot more threatening from the goal. Do you think your team is more effective when the opponent gives you that space to run into like they did today in the first half a little bit, when you have a little bit less of the ball?
No, I don't necessarily think that is the case. Obviously, Columbus came here with a completely different game plan than DC did. A lot of bodies behind the ball and making sure you close and control defensive spaces that you need to control. So we have to find different solutions. But also, again, the first goal in a game is a massive thing in our sports. And we got a good first goal today against a team that had a different game plan. But we have our ideas and our strategy also in place to play against low block teams as well. But if you see, we had almost like 70% of the ball against DC, and there's one throw in that hurts you, and that gets you in a chasing position. And that is what I addressed just now. That is a mentality thing, because you know a team like DC will come here, and that's something that we of course discussed with each other in preparation of that game. They will die for those moments. That's when they are all there, and we weren't there in these moments. And in order to deal with teams that have different strategies, it relies on us. And apart from I think Vancouver and DC in phases of the game and phases against Montreal, overall we did okay. But if we're becoming casual and arrogant and we don't know our place, then it backfires on you.
If I can follow up on that real quick, there was around a 10-minute spell before the third goal where Columbus were coming on top.
Yeah,
Is that the
yeah.
kind of mentality you're talking about?
No. In that moment, you see, if I recall correct, there's a moment where it looks like we're taking a pause, and that is something that you cannot allow yourself to do in these type of moments. So we got lucky with that miss at the back post, because maybe if that goal goes in, you might get a different game, and we all remember what happened against Cincinnati, but it didn't go in, and we kept it together, stepped up a gear again, and had a great third goal, of course. But those are still moments that we have to be aware of going forward.
Glenn?
Hey Pascal.
Hi, Glenn.
So it's 3-0, I think you're at the quarter hour mark, and we were thinking, so Maxi's still on the field, you got a midweek game coming up.
Yep.
Fernandez Mercado still on the field.
Yep.
I wonder, I don't know what to call it normal circumstances, but were you not 100% comfortable at 3-0 at that time, just because of how things have transpired at times in the past?
It had crossed my mind, to be honest. On the other hand, for us, priority number one is always the game that we're playing, and that is, in this case, the game against Columbus. And once the game is finished, then we'll start thinking about the next game that is ahead. But it did cross my mind, and as you know, Glenn, Maxi is a big piece for us in also reading the game and making sure that the game is managed in the right way. So yeah, it's a bit of both worlds.
Keaton Parks thought it was very sharp today.
Yeah.
He hasn't been in the 11 recently,
Mm-hmm.
coach's decision, I believe. Do you think he had a little extra spark today
Yeah.
to show you a little something?
No, not necessarily showing me something. Obviously, Keats is coming from far. If you look what he's been through in 25, and Keats is a guy that is he thrives for perfection. So when it's not perfect, it feels uncomfortable. And he had a few good moments in the first sequence of games. I remember the game that we played against Orlando where he scored 2 goals, and everybody thought, including himself, okay, I'm close to being myself again. But that wasn't the case, and it's still not the case. But I congratulated him just now in the dressing room also because he played over 80 minutes, which is, in his case, maybe even a bigger achievement because he was able to play more than 80 minutes at a good level compared to where he used to be before this game.
Jonathan?
Pascal, 2 more games added to your already pretty long injury list today. Aiden O'Neill and Andres Berra. Could you kind of talk about their injuries and if we'll see them before the World Cup break?
Pep is a different situation. You know as well as I do that he had a moment in Charlotte in 25 which put him out of the game for a while. So we have to respect the injury also and the recovery time for this injury. If I'm not mistaken, he was scheduled for being available again on the roster for today's game. And if you recall, he's been on the roster already a couple of times, so he was ahead of schedule. But as it is normally with coming back to your own level from a severe injury, the body doesn't always work side by side with your ideas. So he had a minor thing, and we have to respect that, and we have to pull him out. Aiden is a different situation. He had an ankle situation in the previous game. Sometimes it flares up, and now we have to respect that moment a little more than usual and give him some rest. Hopefully we'll get some good news this week and see how we will be able to use him again.
Thank
you.
Final one, we'll go to the Zoom. Scott?
Hey Coach, how are you? Scott Church with Street Punk Soccer. Congrats on the win tonight.
Hi Scott, thank you.
Thank you. In this case, I wanted to ask about, the general rule of thumb is that you give the players up 24 hours to reflect on the previous match. But given the fact that you have a match in 72 hours, how do you balance the reflection and the preparation in a situation like this? Do you stay that or you change the rules for it? Thanks.
No, the rules will not change. The funny thing is, of course, that we have to play 3 games within 6 days and 5 games within 14 days. I've heard my colleague in Los Angeles say a few words about this as well, which is maybe a good conversation for another time. But we have our 24-hour rule no matter what. So we'll go into the review, take the lessons from this game again, and prepare ourselves to the match for the game against Charlotte on Wednesday.